There's a really rich history when it comes to puzzles and treasure hunts, and a lack of knowledge of that history is the biggest pitfall that new fans of the hobby fall into. You see, when someone creates a puzzle, they tend to be inspired by a puzzle they worked on in the past. And if you know how the puzzle they worked on in the past was solved, their thought process in working on that puzzle, it'll give you an idea of how they created their current puzzle. It'll just give you a little leg up. One of the biggest mysteries for puzzlers, and especially cipher people, since, I don't know, the 60s, is the noise you're listening to right now. What you're listening to is called a number station, specifically the buzzer. It operates on a frequency of 4625 kilohertz. It operates out of Russia. And if you've got a shortwave radio, you can listen to it right now. It's been buzzing like this since at least the late 70s. That's when it was first discovered. And when it's buzzing, it's not very, it's not very interesting. When it goes quiet, that's when the fun starts. It's kind of creepy, right? This number station specifically is transmitted out of Russia, but countries all over the world operate number stations. They all do kind of different things, but mainly what they do is transmit commands to military or to spies. You have to think to yourself, why would a country transmit sensitive data to spies and military across the airwaves in a way that anyone could listen in? It's because they're transmitting the most secure cipher known to man, the only cipher that is mathematically impossible to break. They're transmitting a one-time pad. Unless you knew what you were looking for in the message that I just played, you may have missed the cipher. So let me play it back for you real quick. What you're looking for is a 5-digit number. That 5-digit number is the most important piece of information in that entire message. All right, let's say for pretend you're the Russian government and you want to send a message to one of your spies. How are you going to do it? Well, first of all, you need to make sure that you and your spy have a matching set of these. They're a little series of numbers. It's called a one-time pad. This is really small. Let's blow this up. So a one-time pad is just a series of numbers broken up into 5 number segments. They look like this. First, we're going to pick our appropriate one-time pad. And what we're looking at are the first 5 numbers. That's our key. We find the numbers that we want to transmit. Starts out with 98774. And we need a message. So let's come up with something simple that everyone can agree on. A lot of times you'll have a key book, and a key book will give you numbers to assign to letters. That sort of overcomplicates what we're doing, so let's just use a transposition cipher. Let's convert these letters to numbers. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so on. Next, we take our one-time pad. Now the first 5 numbers, that's how we identify the pad. So we ignore those numbers. We don't use them for the cipher. We start at the next set of numbers. And then we just put those numbers under the transposition cipher we just made. Here's where things get a bit complex. You have to do a bit of modular addition and subtraction. On the encryption side, we have to do modular subtraction, And then on the decryption side, modular addition. And what that means is basically when you're doing the modular subtraction here, you just subtract the top number from the bottom number. So 7 minus 6 is 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. However, when the number on the bottom is bigger than the number on the top, you just add a 1. You add a tens place, an imaginary tens place, and then do the addition. So 11 minus 3 is 8. 15 minus 8 is 7. And then you just take away the tens place. You just ignore it. It's sort of imaginary. And then you do that for the remainder of the numbers. After all that, you're left with 4 things. You're left with your plain text message, which you absolutely can't send publicly. You're left with a transposition cipher, which you can send publicly, but it's super easy to decipher. Then you apply your key to the transposition cipher, do a bit of subtraction, and you have a ciphertext. You can take an ad out in the New York Times with that ciphertext in it, and no one's going to be able to crack it. Because this ciphertext is unbreakable, it could just be mailed to you. So you're a Russian spy. You're in America. You've been mailed this ciphertext. You've got your one-time pads. Now what? You just need to listen to your shortwave radio to tell you which pad to use to decrypt your message. Like this. Once you know the key you're looking for starts with 98774, you can look through your one-time pad sheets, find that sheet, and apply the key the exact same way we did when we encrypted it. We start with the next set of numbers and add those numbers to the cipher numbers. 6 plus 1 is 7. 3 plus 2 is 5. 8 plus 3 is 11. But we ignore the 10, so we just put a 1. 8 plus 7 is 15. I can math, I promise. It's 15. But we ignore the 1. 8 plus 3 is 11, but we ignore the 1, and on and on and on. We're left with our transposition cipher, which we just convert back into letters. And we have our directions. Once shortwave radios became popular, people found number stations pretty quickly. And they were a huge mystery to people back in the 70s and the 80s. People had no idea what they were. They would listen to them and they would just jot down little notes anytime they'd hear something. It wasn't until the 2000s when a website called preem.org popped up, where people started compiling information about number stations, where we actually figured out what they were doing. See, one person sitting alone at a shortwave radio can't collect all of the data needed to understand this sort of mysterious broadcast. But since people have gotten together and pooled their efforts, we've figured out call signs for number stations, what most of the messages are trying to say. We figured out the locations of number stations. People have actually went to the physical locations of number stations, gotten caught, and then had the number station shut down or moved to completely different places. It's amazing what a group of people can do when they pool their resources and their information in one place. It's amazing what you can learn. Not all number stations transmit one-time pads. They transmit all kinds of stuff. They transmit data bursts, Morse code. They're not all buzzers either. Sometimes they play songs. Like the most famous number station is the Lincolnshire Poacher, and it sounds like this. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it sounds like that. Data bursts get really interesting once you incorporate a spectrum analyzer. And what I'm about to show you wasn't actually sent out by the number station. The number station was jammed with this, but it's a good example of what you can do with a spectrum analyzer, especially when you get into puzzles that use audio. I mean, puzzles that use audio could very easily hide information inside the audio spectrum. I know I've built puzzles that did that. So check this out. Spectrum analyzers can be fun. I used one in a puzzle I made once. Nobody ever figured it out. I thought it was super easy. Here, look.
Teaching you guys things. Just pointing shit out. See that? There it is. That's it.
That weird sound burst, when ran through a spectrum analyzer, looks like this. It resolves to a set of coordinates. Nobody ever figured it out because nobody ever ran it through a spectrum analyzer. Look, you may be wondering why the first episode of this getting to know old puzzles is about an unsolvable cipher. Really, I think the thing you should take away from number stations is the teamwork. Like, yeah, you learned how to do a cipher, and you can put that towards your treasure hunting or your puzzle skills. Like if you ever want to make a puzzle, you know, you can make a one-time pad. You just make the puzzle resolve to the one-time to the key. Boom, you're good to go. But what you should really take away is the teamwork that allowed people to gather information about number stations, to learn about them, and to really solve the mystery of what they were. I mean, I think that's the most impressive thing. From the 70s to the 90s to the 2000s, people didn't know anything. I mean, we thought the buzzer was a dead hand switch. We thought if it ever stopped running, like Russia was going to launch nuclear weapons. A community of people came together, pooled all their information, figured out otherwise. Imagine what, like if a team of people can do that just from listening to a shortwave radio station, imagine what a team of people can do for a puzzle. Oh, and just because I know there's going to be some alpha treasure hunting douchebag out there who's going to be like, one-time pads aren't uncrackable. I can crack a one-time pad. Here's a one-time pad. Crack it and I'll give you that painting.